So I've been told by a few people that in order to be taken more seriously when I make my YouTube videos, I have to have a more presentable appearance. So I purchased a shirt and tie. Yeah. So I want to talk about something that has become near and dear to my heart over the past few months, and that is funding for veterans who want to get their ratings and go fly for the airlines. There are thousands of airline pilots who are retiring or will be retiring within the next 5 years, and there's not enough people to backfill those positions. If you've been watching my YouTube series on Infinity Flight School, you'll know that the FAA developed a plan in 2013 to help address those shortages by reducing the overall entry hour requirement for military aviators and just requiring them to get an additional 250 hours of fixed-wing time. Many veterans have been able to use their GI Bill benefits to supplement their fixed-wing training, or if they attend a degree-producing program at a recognized public college or university, the VA has paid for almost the entirety of the training. On May 1st, 2019, Congress passed a bill known as H.R. 1947, which addressed the funding of flight schools by the VA. The bill is thick with lawyer-like verbiage, but at its heart, it will severely restrict the funding that is allocated to veterans who are seeking to get their fixed-wing ratings. I'm not a super smart person, and I like to view things in a very basic manner, so I'm going to go ahead and break this down for you Barney style. In order to understand this a bit more, I think it's important to outline the 4 entities involved in any degree-producing program where a veteran receives flight training. The first entity is the veteran. Upon signing up for military service, veterans are eligible for a host of educational benefits. Having spent the last 2 years of my active duty service in the United States Army Recruiting Command, I can say that for any veteran who raises their right hand, the educational benefits available to them are just a phenomenal selling point for the Army. I believe that if you're willing to serve, you should be given the opportunity to pursue a good education. There's nothing immoral or inherently wrong with any of that. The second entity is the VA. The VA receives their funding from the federal government, and they allocate a certain portion of that to veterans for educational benefits. The VA has had quite the black eye over the past few years for some major mishandling of medical benefits for veterans. Albeit they have some significant work to do, they still play a vital role in providing a good education for any veteran that wants it. The third entity is the institution itself, i.e. the college or university. The VA provides the money to the college in order to pay for the veteran to attend and earn their degree. Now this column is not specific just to flight school programs. Any veteran who seeks a college education will fall into this category. If you want to get an associate's degree from a local community college, or if you want to pursue your MBA from Harvard, the same basic flow applies. There are caps on funding for private schools like Harvard, but generally speaking, if you attend a public university, the VA covers just about 100% of it. Where degree-producing aviation flight schools differ is that the aviation flight school itself is its own entity. They work with a local college or university and use a Part 141 program, which is an FAA-approved course which follows a specific syllabus of flight instruction. This is the root of the problem. Not because everyone can't figure out how to do it, but because these flight schools tend to get greedy. For example, one of the key points brought up by Representative David Rowe of Tennessee, who is the author of the bill, concerns a case in which a flight school charged a student $500,000 for his training. There was a Forbes article written on August 2nd, 2018, which cites the same example. Obviously, this is a problem. Being one who strongly believes that the government needs to practice better fiscal responsibility, I understand what it is that Representative Rowe is trying to do. And what is that, you might ask? Well, he's trying to stop the bleeding by placing an annual cap on the amount of funding we receive at $23,671. And ultimately, that means that the veteran has to pick up the remaining difference. Once again, if you've been following my YouTube series on my experience at Infinity Flight School, which I will link below, you will know that the cost of flight training is roughly double $23,671. So in an honorable effort to practice budgetary responsibility, the veteran is ultimately getting the short end of the stick. For example, the VA will only pay $23,671 to the schools for flight training. That means that the price of funding by the college goes down, the cost for the veteran goes up, and the flight school is allowed to stay constant. Granted, you won't see flight schools charging $500,000 anymore, but you also won't see them significantly dropping their prices either. And listen, flying is expensive, and to give you an idea, the Army aviation budget in 2016 comprised roughly 25% of the Army's overall budget. I mean, that's a lot. But if you look deeper into the civilian side of aviation training, you'll see that the price is generally pretty comparable with those people who are seeking other degrees and programs outside of flying. For example, I have a good buddy who's getting out of the Army after 10 years of honorable service, and he's going to be attending the University of Georgia, go Dogs, where he's going to be getting his MBA. That is a 2-year program that costs just over $56,000 for in-state tuition and $72,000 for out-of-state tuition. Most flight schools across the country will cost somewhere between $50,000 and $60,000. So is this plan that Congress has pushed up to the Senate really going to save money? I will admit that there needs to be some cost cutting, but I would like to bring up this point. Some of the same congressmen and women who voted to pass this bill to essentially cap the amount of VA funding going to veterans are also arguing for free college education for all. If you look at Bill H.R. 1880, which was presented in 2017, you'll see that 49 members of Congress supported the idea of free college education for all. So once again, if you look at this logically, if you can't find the money to support those who honorably serve their country, then how are you going to find money for everyone else? The other point that I want to bring up is ROI, or return on investment. Could the VA potentially have to fork out a ton of money to pay for flight training for all those veterans who are wanting to fly? Well, yes. But to use my buddy who is attending the University of Georgia as an example, he, who's an extremely smart person and will have no issues being successful in whatever he does, still doesn't have a job guarantee once he graduates with his MBA from UGA. I, on the other hand, do. After I finish the flight training in Infinity Flight School, I'm going to a regional airline. They offered me a job and I accepted. And there's a lot of us that are in that same boat that already have job offers and just need the training to get there. Putting money towards people who will be working in a very promising and high demand career field is definitely a good return on investment. Right now the bill is on its way to the Senate, and if passed it goes to the President. If he approves it, well, it's going to adversely affect veterans and I think the airline industry as a whole. What may be seen as a potentially noble gesture of fiscal responsibility is probably not really a good idea. Finally, I would like to point out a specific quote by Representative David Rowe of Tennessee. He states, "These changes to flight training for the GI Bill have had wide bipartisan and veteran service organization support in the past, and I am pleased that they are included in this bill." I think that comment is very nearsighted and does not reflect the general consensus of those veterans who want to become airline pilots in the airline industry. If you're interested in helping out, I would encourage you to share this video with as many people as you know. And if you're feeling pretty froggy and you really want to be helpful, call your local senator. As long as there are business meetings to make, awesome trips to take, and Vanilla Ice missing his layover in Atlanta at stake.
You didn't board me. I'm sitting in the freaking line right here. I'm thinking all these people are in line to board. I'm behind them right here.
This country is going to need pilots, and there's a willing group to fill that role. Let's make it happen. Watch this thing.